Thank you for that kind introduction. I'm not sure I'm that innovative, but we'll certainly talk about radical innovation and what we call moonshot thinking. Common question that we get pretty much all the time is, what's a moonshot? You can Google for it, but there isn't a single definition. A definition or a construct that we use is what I have on the screen there. But to explain it in a more practical fashion, what we encourage our teams and folks to look for is really, really big problems that exist in the world, and there are plenty of them. Can you come up with breakthrough solutions through radical innovation to solve some of the world's hardest problems so that they can change, the solutions can change the way we basically use or are affected by it, and in return, create economic value? If you could define something like that, here's a big problem, here's a different way to tackle and come up with a solution. But to do that, here's all this innovation that has to happen for us to pull it together. And if we did it, it would change how we're using this all over the world. That would be, to me, a definition of moonshot. So now that we can frame it that way, the hardest part of the whole thing is, how do you go about doing radical innovation? There isn't a playbook. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said every time we use the word innovation and radical innovation, we can just make a list of 15 things, and if you work this way, you're going to have so-and-so result. That doesn't exist. These are principles. Some work for some don't work. But I'll spend a few minutes talking about how we encourage and think about approaching radical innovation. First thing, aim for 10%, 10x, not 10%. 10% improvement is not easy to do. If you're a big scale company, getting 10% improvement of anything is really, really hard. But if you're shooting for the moon, 10% is incremental innovation. It's not radical innovation. So your goal should be, how do I make this 10x better? Not just 10% better. Again, making it 10% better might have value, but that's not radical. Shooting 10 times higher is what the goal should be. Fall in love with the problem, not the solution. You have an idea. You think you can make something, and that would solve a particular problem. Now you're going to work really, really hard to try to prove that your solution, your idea, is actually going to solve that particular problem. I would humbly tell you that that's probably not the best approach, because there might be 10 other ways that you could go after that problem if you fell in love with trying to solve the problem and not just the solution that you came up with. So always keep the framing that, what's the problem that I'm trying to solve? And is this the best way to do it? How are you going to find that out? Get out into the real world as soon as you can. Labs are fantastic. You could experiment with anything that you want in the lab. Make it fast. Build quick prototypes. They work in the lab to some extent. How do you know that they work in the real world? You can't simulate that. You have to take it out. Go work with real users. See how they would react to it, how they would use it, how they would function with it. Are they happy with it? These are the things that you have to find out sooner rather than later. So don't just stay in the lab. Get out and experiment in the real world. Encourage creativity. There are no bad ideas. Remember, you're trying to solve a really, really big problem, whatever that is. So if you stifle creativity and say, this is a bad idea, why are you going about it this way? You might be leaving and ignoring a potential pathway that probably could solve that problem. Now, there is no guarantee that every idea is going to work. So, but trying it fast and being very dispassionate about your assessment of the outcome helps you go there faster. By that, what I mean is, the day or the moment that you realize that this idea is not going to pan out in solving this problem, move on. Don't sit there and think about, that was a bad idea. No, it was an idea. We tried it. It didn't work. Wonderful. Now we know how not to do it. Tackle the monkey first. This is one of my favorites. I did not come up with it, a friend of mine, and I use it all the time. What does that mean? Let's say our challenge is that we want a monkey to sit on a pedestal and recite Shakespeare. How would you start? By the way, for any of these big problems that you're trying to tackle, figuring out what your starting point is really hard. So here we want a monkey to sit on a pedestal and recite Shakespeare. What would you start with? The easiest place to start is let's build a pedestal. Wrong answer. We've been building pedestals for centuries. We know how to do it. What is it that we don't know how to do, that we haven't figured out yet? Getting a monkey to read. So let's focus on that. Let's spend our energy towards figuring out how to get monkey to read. If we figure that out, we have Shakespeare. We know how to make the most comfortable pedestal for the monkey. Now you have solved your problem. So anything that you're going after, if you want to do something radically different that can give you a different way to solve a problem, go after the hardest piece of the problem first. It's counterintuitive. It's frustrating. Nobody said going to the moon is easy. So go after the hardest part, experiment with those things, get out into the real world, see if it works or if it doesn't work. And that leads to the next thing. The word failure is struck there, and it's replaced with learning. Even bad ideas, any idea that you try out, if you did not get the result that you were expecting, you would think it's a failure. It's not. You're trying to do something that has not been done before. So, of course, 99% of the time, what you try might not work. That's a learning. Every single thing that you try, every experiment you run, leads to some amount of new learning. Take that new learning into the next idea you try. Don't think of it as failure. Don't call it a failure. Don't say, we tried these 7 ideas. They were bad ideas, and they all failed. That's not radical innovation thinking. We tried 7 ideas, and we learned these 15 things. Now we know what the 7 things that we should not be doing, and the 15 that would guide the path that we should take for the next 15 experiments. And ask the question early and often, how valuable is this? Building something is fun. Running great experiments is fun. Learning's fun. But if you cannot deliver value to whoever it is that you're targeting that can use this, it's not that useful. You're not going to change the world doing that work. So ask that question early, often, as often you possibly can, and learn from the answers that you get from that particular experiment. So I'm going to give you an example of something that could potentially be a moonshot. The way goods are made, moved, and managed isn't working. That's a pretty bold statement. And by goods, I mean any physical asset. Everything from your cell phones to pallets to chairs to medications to you name it, food, any physical goods. The way they have been made, moved, and managed has been inefficient. Why am I saying that? If I ask you the question, how many packages are lost every single day? Just because I asked the question, you'd give me some pretty big number, 10,000, 100,000, 15,000, 50,000. 1.7 million packages get lost every single day, never to be found again. Now, these packages are all being transported on some kind of a carrier. 40% of all the trucks that are moving right now in the United States are running empty. Some of it you can't avoid because you dropped something off, you might not have something to pick back up. But I think we can do better than 40%. Yeah? Let's keep going. I mean, the amount of greenhouse gas emissions out of empty trucks running is a pretty darn big number, too. What are the goods that we move? Manufacturing. 20 cents of every dollar that we spend in manufacturing goes to waste. Okay? That's multi-trillion-dollar industry. Over 50% of critical healthcare, when you go to a healthcare setting, is delayed. No doctor sees you immediately after you walk in. Last, 40% of the food that we harvest and prepare goes into landfills. Some of it is regulation. A lot of it is lack of our real-time ability to match supply and demand. And to put that in perspective, 800 million people go to bed every day around the world hungry. Why is this going on? This is not a new problem. These problems have existed forever, but we have not found scale solutions for it. And that's because we do not have visibility into where everything is. Okay? Lack of visibility is what this is called. The last scale technology that has been deployed across the world to manage physical assets is the barcode. So, there's your big problem. Let's say, breakthrough solution. What if we said every single physical goods has a voice? And it could be anything. I mean, just folks sitting here, if you just count the number of assets that you have with you, it would be into hundreds. You just take this chapel, it's thousands. You take the rest of this chapel, it's tens of thousands. You take this campus, it's millions. Okay? Winston-Salem, probably 100 plus million. Keep adding. If you take the whole world, it's trillions. What if every single physical good has a voice? What if we know with some certainty where everything is and something about its condition? What is it doing? What is it not doing? What's happening to it? What's not happening to it? Is it moving? Is it not moving? What if we knew that with reasonable certainty? Now you have trillions and trillions of data points that are coming in and being generated in real time. Transporting and analyzing that data in real time, to put it mildly, is a non-trivial problem. So what if we could do that? We could move all of this data in real time, inexpensively. Can we then generate actionable insights so that we could actually fix these problems that I was talking about? Can we, if we did those things, would that information radically transform the way we make, move, and manage the world's goods? We believe so. Every single asset talking is interesting. Like every musician playing their instrument. It's wonderful. But if you got all of them together, playing together as an orchestra, as a symphony orchestra, what you produce is something far more magical than a single musician playing their own instrument. So if we had every single physical asset in the world has a voice, and we know all this information we're talking about, can we then orchestrate all of these things in real time and reach a much higher level, which is what I call synchronicity? We believe the answer is yes. How we do it? Can we do it? Are we going to be successful? What are the learnings from the journey? Is a topic for another discussion. Thank you.